Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another session of Coach Steele's Finance Training. How are y'all doing on today? Come on in the room. We have an awesome lesson on today when we talk about Coach Steele's Finance Training. I am your host, Coach Steele. As you come on in the room, make sure you meet me and greet me. I'm live on YouTube. On my YouTube channel, Coach Steele's Finance Training. I'm also live on Facebook. Make sure you tell me good morning. I need to make sure that all cylinders are firing off and working on all platforms. So definitely give me a shout out whether you're on YouTube or on Facebook or if you're on TikTok. That way I'll know everything's working on today. So let's see what we have here. All right, we got Facebook fully operational. We got Mr. Tony Sherman jumping in. He says, good morning. So good morning to you, Mr. Tony Sherman, one of the faithful listeners here on Coach Steele's Finance Training. We are talking about real estate on today. You ought to be excited. We're talking about real estate investing, and I want to talk to you all today. Of course, I am Coach Steele. I am your host on today. We talk about all things financial literacy here on Coach Steele's Finance Training. And of course, today we're talking about real estate investing in multifamily unit properties. And I want to just share a little bit about how I purchased my first multifamily unit property, a duplex. And hopefully that will motivate someone, inspire someone so that they can go out and do the same thing, but potentially better. Good morning to you, Mr. Tim Scott. Happy to have you tuning in to Coach Steele's Finance Training on today. My YouTube listeners, chat section and give me a shout out on today. So let's look and see here. Let's look and see here what we have. Like I said, the lesson on today, what you see is how I purchased my first multifamily unit property, which was a duplex. And I'm interested to hear your thoughts and your comments on today as we dive into how this works, how this system works. I'll be able to show y'all a few pictures, and not only a few pictures, but I also want to just do a little math when it comes to evaluating and strategizing on when and how to pull that trigger, when it makes sense to move forward on a deal. That's something that we'll look at as well. And so if you're tuning in on TikTok, definitely appreciate you tuning in. You can always go to the YouTube channel and subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. So let's see here. And while I got my TikTok people here, let's see. Oh, y'all are in business. I'll be able to flip my phone so y'all can see some of the demonstrations that I give. All right. So I'll be multitasking on today. All right. Here we go. So when it comes to purchasing multifamily unit properties, just to give you a quick background and history, usually I purchase single family unit properties. And so usually that means like a regular house that people live in. You know, you'll have a family in there, whether it's 3 bedroom, 2 bedroom, whatever the case may be. I try to stick to more to properties that usually have 3 bedrooms because usually a 3 bedroom house, it's easier to keep occupied. You have less turnover, right? And so when it comes to this multifamily unit, I really wanted to transition to purchasing multifamily unit properties because you do the same math. It takes the same amount of time to do the math, the same amount of time to do the homework and the research. But as Tony Sherman has put, it's a great investment avenue. In that comment section that I'm reading here, it's an opportunity to make more money and to acquire a property that has more value while I'm taking the same time and energy. Good morning to you, Shauna Johnson. Happy to have you tuning in as well. So my TikTok listeners, make sure you go subscribe to the YouTube channel as you're listening in as well. You can stay on TikTok, but jump over to YouTube. Let's build up that community we have, because throughout the week, you'll see the shorts and the other videos that are posted on the YouTube channel. So I don't want you all to miss out on the content that's being posted. So, all right. So I got this multifamily unit property. And one thing I want to emphasize to everyone as y'all are tuning in, a lot of the hard work, and you hear all these different myths about real estate. Is real estate a headache? Is real estate, does it cost too much? Is it impossible for the average person to get into? Is it not worth the headache? All of these different things that you hear when it comes to acquiring real estate, these different myths. Let me tell you this, a lot of the hard work when it comes to investing in real estate, a lot of the hard work you'll have to do is well before you actually acquire the property. A lot of the hard work you have to do in real estate investing, if you want it to go as smooth as possible, as successful as possible, will be in the hard work, what I call due diligence. In that comment section in the chat, I need you all to type in due diligence. That is one of the most important, if not the most important thing right there. Good morning to you, Mr. Joseph Thomas. Good morning to you, Dane. Good morning to you, Loretta Davis. Good morning to you, Goddess. Good morning to you, Pillow Bird. Happy to have everybody tuning in on today, Coach Steele's Finance Training, as we dive into how to acquire multifamily unit properties, this duplex I acquired. You all make sure you share the live so other people can tune in. Real estate is one of the best ways to acquire wealth, to be able to create passive income for yourself or another stream of income, and also create generational wealth in the same breath as well. Good morning to you, Sonia Walker, and Cheese as well. So as y'all are tuned in, locked in on today, in that comment section, I need you all to type due diligence. You need to make sure you do your DUE, not DO, DUE, due diligence. So when you're looking for the right deal, you just don't dive into any real estate deal. Some people get frustrated and they say there's no money in real estate and they're struggling because they dive into bad deals. And so you can't say real estate sucks. You can't say you had a horrible experience if you didn't do your proper due diligence. Do mistakes happen? Do people lose money? Yes, that happens. But there's a way to give yourself some cushion. There's a way to give yourself a buffer for the things that could potentially go wrong. And so good morning to you, Alvin Jones. Happy to have you tuning in, and James Montgomery, Randy Watts, as y'all are tuned in and we're talking about acquiring multifamily unit properties, and I'm giving my experience about this duplex. First thing I had to do was I had to do my due diligence. You know, depending on what city and what county you live in, some places have a lot of multifamily unit properties and some of them just don't. So if you live in a small town, they may not have as many multifamily unit properties. So you may have to look outside of your city or outside of your county, but don't be intimidated by that. You need to do your proper due diligence. That's most important. And so you're hunting. Due diligence is like hunting. You're doing your research, you're doing your homework, you're being patient. If you only are looking at one or two properties or three or four properties, then you haven't done enough due diligence. You're missing out on all these other options in other cities and other states. Another thing, you do not have to be in that area to acquire the property. That's another myth we're going to bust today as we are doing our due diligence, as Tony Sherman has put in the chat section. Stop thinking that you have to be next to that property, next to that city, or it needs to be 30 minutes away from you. It doesn't. If you think that way, you're limiting yourself on how much moolah you can make. All right, so let's go a little bit further on today. And we talk about purchasing this multifamily unit property. So it takes patience, takes experience, takes time, going through the motions, talking with people, meeting with people, learning how to do the numbers. I'm not going to have enough time to go through every little thing today, but we are going to go through a lot. And so you're not going to always find your deal in one day, in one moment. Another thing that matters, location. If I'm getting a multifamily unit property, I want to make sure that people are always renting in that area. So location matters. Due diligence, your location, because if you pick the right location, then you won't have as much turnover in those doors. If you have multiple doors, you want to keep those doors filled with good quality tenants. And so with that, I like places like military towns. I think military towns are great because soldiers are always renting, because their mindset many times is that they're going to be there temporary. So as you're doing your due diligence and your homework, one of the things you're going to have to do, as you all are sharing the live here on Coach Steele's Finance Training for other people to dive in, we want other people to create generational wealth. We want other people to create passive income. Just think about how important passive income is, or another stream of income. We just went through in Coach Steele's Finance Training, we talked about it on the YouTube channel, about how people went through furloughs and all these other issues that happened with government shutdown. You know, what if you had some extra income coming in from a duplex or a fourplex or 12 units, a small apartment complex? What if you had that coming in during that time frame? Many of you probably would be able to just step away from your job. Happy to have you tuning in on today, Outlaw and New York Royalty. So let's go a little bit further here. And I want you all to understand. So you have to do your math. You have to do your math. Now, there's different ways to evaluate whether or not a deal is good or not. But one of the simplest ways to evaluate whether a deal is good or not is the 1% rule. In that chat section, I want you all to type the 1% rule. Does anybody know what that 1% rule is? Anybody know what the 1% rule is? So I need you all to type in the chat section 1% rule. That is just one of the simplest ways, because I told you all, I need you all to be trying to evaluate multiple deals. So that's a lot of math, but there's some deals you might be able to cancel out very quickly than others just simply off of doing the 1% rule. And I'm going to get into the deal that I did and the numbers and that multifamily unit property, so you all be able to see why I agreed, why I pulled the trigger on that deal, why I went ahead and moved forward with it. So in that comment section, write 1% rule. Thank you, Mr. Tony Sherman. 1% rule. You need to know that it's simple, and some deals, because it doesn't pass the 1% rule, you'll move past it quickly. You may not even waste time evaluating it because it doesn't pass the 1% rule. Thank you for tuning in, Super Lady, Jacqueline, and also Ella Blanchard. So now let's go forward. We're talking about the 1% rule. The 1% rule is simple. Whatever the sale price is of the property, whatever the sale price is of a property is the rent that you're going to make monthly. Is the monthly rent at least 1% of the sale price? Now, some of you all were sharp. You're on your feet. You wanted to get fancy. You could give me an example. Okay, I'll give an example. If a property was $250,000, I need y'all to say yes or no in that comment section. If a property was $250,000, that's the sale price. They want $250K. If the rent is $2,385, $2,385 a month, the rent. If the rent is $2,385, is that 1% of $250,000? Yes or no? Does that pass the 1% rule? The 1% rule says if you buy this property, the rent needs to be, the monthly rent at least needs to be 1% of the sale price. And so you'll be able to understand and be able to quickly say, okay, you know what? That doesn't pass the 1% rule. So therefore I may or may not do that deal. The sale price is $250,000. Shauna Johnson said, say it again. The sale price is $250,000. But the rent, the monthly rent is $2,385. Does that pass the 1% rule? Does it make sense to buy the property? Sale price. That's why I call this Coach Steele's finance training, because we actually do training here. You may have to get a piece of paper or a calculator and do some math. Now, if you're driving, don't do that. Sale price is $250,000. Monthly rent is $2,385. The 1% rule says the rent needs to be equal or more than 1% of the sale price. So we're going to do some math today. Those of you that are tuning in and you all love learning about real estate investing, I'm not a super duper expert, but I know a little bit. I know enough to be able to get you to the finish line and be able to help you out. And so this will be some good training that we go through. Okay, so are we saying $2,385 is 1% of 250,000? So what you want to do is find out what is 1% of 250,000. What is 1% of 250,000, ladies and gentlemen? Whatever that number is, you want to look at $2,385. Okay, we got Shauna Johnson. She says no. She says no, it falls under that. So Shauna is correct. 1% of $250,000 is $2,500. So now automatically, and what am I doing? I'm showing you all the setup for the duplex that I bought, the multifamily unit. All of this is going to come together. It's setting you up for success to understand the the logic of why I did the deal the way I did it. Shauna says no because it falls under that. So the property that I was getting is valued at $250,000. The duplex is worth $250,000. But in order for me to dive in on this deal, I didn't want to get it at 250,000 because the monthly rents that's coming from the duplex was $2,385. Now this is getting good because y'all are about to learn why I negotiated the way I did. So if the monthly rent is $2,385, what would I need to buy this house, this duplex at? Oh, this is good. What sale price would I need to at least buy it at? What's my max that I would agree to fall within the 1% rule? If the rent is $2,385, then what does the sale price need to be so that it falls within the 1% rule? No, Sean, I won't be saving because it falls under the 2,500 sale rule. The 1% rule, Shauna Johnson, it says that whatever the monthly rent that I'm receiving from this property, the sale price needs to be at least there needs when I take 1% times that sale price, it needs to at least equal the monthly rent or be less than the monthly rent. It needs to equal the monthly rent or be less than the monthly rent. And so if they're trying to sell it for 250,000, but the rent is only $2,385, then 1% of 250,000 is $2,500. The rent is below 1%. I need that 1% rule to work for me in my favor to want to purchase it is the rent needs to be at least equal to 1% or more. Okay, Shauna, now you're getting it. So now in order for me to move and desire to move on this deal, well, just one of the first signs that we look at when it comes to the math, as you all can see, Shauna put, in order for me to want to buy it and for it to be successful in the 1% rule, that property now needs to be sold for $238,500. $238,500. Now it will meet the 1% rule because I already did the math and found out. Part of the due diligence, and you can go to those real estate agents or property management, is find out how much are these properties renting for. They can show you the sheets, they can show you the books, they can show you the information that you need to see to make sure that that is what they're renting out for currently. You can see how long the tenants have been renting it out. You can see how long they've been under contract with property management. You can check all of that information out. So I did my homework and found out in the duplex for both doors on that property, the total rent is $2,385. So in order for it to even pass the test, for me to even potentially want to buy it, I need to buy it for me to make a profit, Shauna, Tim. Yes, you're learning. This is good stuff. Yes, I see your comment there. See, a lot of people are going to let this gloss over because it's going to be too complicated, but it's simple if you take your time. You all share this live with other people so that they can tune in and more people can also learn how to buy, purchase multifamily unit properties. Because if you learn the concept and the principles, then you'll stop panicking over all the other stuff. And so we're going to get to some of that other stuff, and I'm going to show you some other math. And I'm interested in your thoughts and your comments as we go through this. So now let's go a little bit further. Let's go a little bit further. I need it to be at least $238,500. So instead of them selling it for $250,000, they came to me and said, "Oh, we're selling it for $245,000." So now you understand my logic when I'm getting ready to buy this duplex, how the math isn't math and it's not making sense. It's not even passing the 1% rule. Yes, I might make about $5,000 in equity. I'll have $5,000 in equity because it's worth $250,000. So now you have to start negotiating and you have to have a reason to negotiate your price. And so location is great. It's around military town. I'm going to have not going to have high turnover rate because most people stay in certain places for a certain period of time, especially soldiers, military. Another math that you can do, and now we're going to dive a little bit deeper into this. And those that are on TikTok, I have to try to share my screen with you. More math that you have to do. And I've taught here many times on Coach Steele's finance training. You'll see it in some of the videos on the lives that we do every Saturday morning, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time Zone, is the cash on cash return. So now you have to look at the cash on cash return. If I make this purchase, Shauna, what is my cash on cash return? Now, the average investor, the average real estate investor wants to make about 10 to 12% on their money, 10 to 12% on their cash on cash return. Now, of course, they can put their money in a regular savings account, make less than 1%. They can put their money in a high yield interest savings account, make about 4%. They can put their money in the stock market and make about 10%. So if someone's going to invest in real estate, they want to make about 10 to 12% because otherwise, why would you invest in real estate only to make 4%? Unless there's tons of equity in the property, right? That's a whole nother story. But you don't want to do this deal and only make 4% because you could have just left your money sitting around taking no chance in a high yield and make that without doing anything. All right, so the goal is to make 12%, 10 to 12%, preferably 12. Now, some people will settle for 10% because they know the rent will go up annually and it'll eventually allow them to hit that 12% mark. So let's go deeper because we want to learn cash on cash return. All right. So in that comment section, if someone's hands are free, I need you all to write cash on cash return. I talked to you all about due diligence and patience, doing your homework. I talked about knowing your math, doing your numbers. We talked about the 1% rule. Next is cash on cash return. And so that is COC, cash on cash return, COCR. That's what I call it. Cash on cash return. Now, that's a little more math. Now, the 1% rule is pretty simple. You can knock it out quick. But cash on cash return, let's look at this. And I may have to share my screen with TikTok. So yeah, that way they'll be able to see what's going on. Thank you, Mr. Reggie Castile as well. Cash on cash return. We want to make about 12%. Remember this, you want to make about 12%, but you might settle for 10% if you know there's some things that can happen, or in the next year, the rent is potentially going to go up, or whoever previously owned the property has the rent. When you look at the comps in the area, you're going to look at the comparables in the area to see what the rents are. And if that person who has that property, it has had the rents well below the comps in the area, the market rate, then you may decide to increase it, which now you know you'll go from 10% to about 12% or more. All right, so let's go a little bit further. Let's go a little bit further. How did I find the cash on cash return? Okay, let's see if I can share my screen. I already have a lot of this already laid out, so it shouldn't take too long. But I am going to let you all do a little math. All right, let's see if we have this. As usual, I supersize my screen. Let's go TikTok team. Let me flip camera. And boom, here we go. All right, let's see if I can do this. And supersize. Boom. All right, so as y'all are tuning in, long story short, so we don't take too long, even though they wanted to sell it for 245,000, y'all, I was able to talk them down to 220,000. Think about this. I want y'all to be doing the math in your head. The property was worth 250,000 and I talked them down to 220,000. So now, because I talked them down to 220,000, I need you all to understand that now I have about $30,000 worth of equity in this property. $30,000 worth of equity. So now I get this property, I can turn around and sell it to a homeowner, not an investor. An investor is going to want the 1% rule, right? So now the investor only wants 238. So I only make, maybe 15, 18,000. But a homeowner, they buy it for 250. Now I'm up $30,000 profit. Now, let's go further. If you buy a property for 220,000, the average investor, and I know some of y'all are going to panic over this, and I don't want you to, the average investor is going to have to put maybe 44,000 down, but you don't always have to come up with that 44,000 yourself. You can get someone to invest with you. You'd be surprised how many people would just invest with you once they know they're going to make 12% on their money. So don't get caught up over that. Some of you would check out and say, oh, well, I don't have that. It would take me 10 years to get that. No, it wouldn't. It'd take you 10 years if you settled on what you know. Now, and we put the interest rate at 7.5%, right? So now we got the interest rate, 7.5%. Property taxes was about 2,200. Home insurance was about 1,700. If y'all don't know this, usually for property, when you get home insurance for a rental property is usually cheaper, way cheaper than when you get home insurance for your average house. So when you put all those numbers in, how much the house is, how much your down payment is, and the interest rate. Now that's kind of high. When I did 7.5, that is way higher than what it is right now. But hey, let's go worst case scenario, right? Because there's some other things that I'm not going to have time to cover. When you look at it, what does it say that monthly payment is going to be on that duplex? Now you already know what the rent is because we discussed what the rent is earlier. So my monthly payment on that duplex is going to be $1,556 a month. And yes, you are right, Shauna. I have about $30,000 in equity if I move forward on this deal. Now, so we're looking at this. So that means the monthly payment will be about $1,556 if I move forward and get them to do this at 220,000. Now I talked them down from 250 down to 220. Got $30,000 worth of equity. And the reason why that's important, the reason why I really want to emphasize that on today, guys, is because I love doing deals where I have equity. Some people panic, oh, I can't make money every month, or this went bad, or the tenant left. What can I do the next day, the next month? I can just sell and walk away with a profit. I like having equity in deals so that I can walk away with the profit and not stress if I don't need to. Now, so here's some more math we got to do now. We already know the monthly rent, and I need someone to write that in the comment section. The monthly rent is not the monthly rent. The monthly mortgage payment is $1,556 a month. And we see where it's broken down: principal and interest, insurance, taxes. We see that $1,556 a month. So with it being $1,556 a month, and let's see if we can go back to flipping the camera. Let me get TikTok set back up. When we see that, I want y'all to do some math. I already told you all the rent from both doors is $2,385. The monthly payment on the mortgage is $1,556. We're talking about cash on cash return. Anytime you talk about cash on cash return, you need to know all your overhead because we're going to take all the overhead, subtract that from the rent, the monthly overhead, subtract it from the monthly rent amount. Then we're going to divide for that 44,000 that we put down on the house. We're going to divide that into that number. So that's how we're going to get the cash on cash return. All right. So now the monthly rent is $2,385. The monthly rent that I'm getting as the owner, $2,385. The monthly mortgage payment, that I have to pay the mortgage company is $1,556. If we take 1556 from 2385, what do we get? $1,556 subtracted from 2385, what do we get? I got y'all doing some work today. $2,385 minus 1556. All right, so Shauna has the right answer. So the answer is $829. Now we got $829. Now check this out. We got $829 profit, but what else do we need to pay? If you're not going to manage this property yourself, who do we have to pay? Because who wants to answer the phone every other month or whenever, or doing inspections and all of that? Who do I need to pay? Because I'm not going to manage these properties myself, Donna Smith. I'm not going to manage these properties myself, Saki, the drink med. I'm not doing it. I need freedom. I need my time to go do other things, Noah. So when it comes to this multifamily, when it comes to this duplex, and me acquiring multiple properties and other single family units, I can answer the phone from all these people. Correct. I have to pay an agency, and it's called property management. Correct, Tony Sherman. I have to pay property management. And so on Coach Steele's finance training, I've already lined up to interview a property management team to talk about how that works for people who have questions about property management. So make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. That way you don't miss that interview, Coach Steele's finance training. So I got to pay property management. So we got $829. So let's say I'm going to pay property management $156. If I'm going to pay property management $156, then my monthly profit isn't $829. Now we have to do $829 minus 156. What is $829 minus 156? Let's do the math. Come on, my math heads. 829 minus 156. What does that equal? $829 minus 156. Bingo. Shauna is on top of it. That is $673. We're getting closer to this cash on cash return. All right, so now that we know that the monthly profit potentially from this duplex is close, Mr. Castile. He says about 670. Shauna says 673, so her 673 is correct. And what I want you all to know is that sometimes you're going to have to call the plumber. You're going to have to get some yard work done. You may have to call the AC guy. Things are going to come up. Now, I'm not including the bump in rent and the increase in rent, right? So because I'm not including all of that and the appreciation and all the profit and all of that, we're going to keep this simple. Let's work with a round number. Let's say after I pay the plumber or someone to do the yard every month or every other month or whatever, let's say the profit is going to be $600 a month. All right. So after I pay the mortgage company and someone to cut the grass, the profit is $600, and property management I walk away with $600 every month from this duplex. All right. That's if rent never is increased, and we know in America rent goes up. But we're going to stay with $600. All right. Happy to have you tuning in, Maria Hernandez as well. And you all make sure you share this live. So we got 600 profit every month. 600 is my profit. $600 profit. Now we're getting closer to the cash on cash return. We got all this overhead out of the way. Now my mathematicians out there, I need you to take 600 and multiply it times 12. We need to know what our profit is going to be. Okay, Mr. Tony Sherman. All right, I see you. I see you. He's already got the answer. He knows where I'm going. We know that the annual profit is going to be $7,200. As y'all are tuning in to Coach Steele's finance training on today, I want you all to think about something. If your job never gave you an increase in pay, if your job never gave you a raise, if your job never gave you a promotion, thank you, Mr. Reggie Castile. I see it, $7,200. What if you could give yourself a $7,200 increase in pay, a $7,200 raise or a promotion yourself by having investment property? I want y'all to do the math on that thing. Even if the next year your job doesn't give you a raise or a promotion, but the rent goes up, guess what? You just gave yourself the raise and promotion. I hope this is clicking for people on today, the power of real estate, monthly active income. Now, I've talked about things before with your financial freedom dates and your financial freedom numbers and how to hit those goals and those targets. Some people have to wait till they're 59 and a half plus to be able to get access to the monthly money that they put away for 30 plus years. But when it comes to real estate, you're not having to wait 30 plus years to hit 65, to hit 59 and a half to get the money. Every month, property management is sending it into your account as you check emails and say yes or no to certain decisions. I hope this is making sense for you all on today. So now, when we're looking at cash on cash return on this duplex, I'm making $600 a month profit times 12 is $7,200 a year, an extra $7,200. But is it worth my time? Is it worth my while? I told you all we're going to take that profit amount at $7,200 and divide it by what the down payment was. And so when we look at that, does anybody remember what that down payment was on the property? Remember, as an investor, usually you're going to put about 20% down. Anybody remember what that down payment amount was? In that comment section, what was the down payment for the property that we negotiated from $250,000 down to $220,000? And I wish I had time to talk to you all about that process of negotiating it down to 220, but I don't. We have to do that another day. Mr. Reggie Castile remembers. So because we bought it at $220,000, 20% of that is $44,000. Now, what you want to do, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to find out the cash on cash return, remember with cash on cash return, we want to make about 10 to 12% because we don't want to make 4% because we can sit our money in a high yield interest savings account and make 4% without having to do any work or math or anything. So we want to more than double that for our investment. Now, we take 44,000 and we divide it into 7,200. What do we get? When you divide 44,000 into 7,200, that lets you know what your cash on cash return is. In that comment section, what is $7,200 divided by $44,000? It should come out in a decimal form, but it will let you know what percent that is. Some of you, if you already know what percent it is, you can write the percent. Now that will let you know what my cash on cash return was on this multifamily unit property deal. As y'all are tuning in to Coach Steele's Finance Trainer, we're talking about buying multifamily unit properties, creating generational wealth, creating passive income, creating more cash flow for yourself, money to invest, quality of living, giving yourself a raise. We are talking about all those good things on today. And so I need you all to stay tuned in and locked in on today. We're going to take $7,200 and make sure we divide it by 44,000. So we got one answer so far. Kashana Johnson says 0.16. Does anybody know what that is in percent? If you don't know, that is 16%. So 0.16 equals 16%. So now this is where it gets interesting. I told you all, thank you, Mr. Tony Sherman, 16%. So now, instead of hitting my 10 to 12% target, I'm going to make 16%. Now this gives me some buffer. Remember I talked about the plumber and the AC and all that other stuff. If something else goes on, maybe I still land in the 10 to 12% range. But I know before I even raise rent to get to my 20% or more, I'm going to be at that 16%. So now I'm feeling kind of happy about this deal. Now y'all see, I'm boom. I've had success with the 1% rule. I've had success with the cash on cash return. And I got $30,000 worth of equity. Uh-oh. Now it's starting to look favorable. Before I had to cancel some stuff out. Before it wasn't passing certain rules and certain things. I wasn't making my percent. 1% rule's not working. There's no equity. Maybe $5,000 if I'd have bought it at 245,000. So now you're starting to see why my brain starts saying yes. Anytime a deal starts passing the math test, you start saying yes more as opposed to no. Now, there's a lot of negotiating going on. Whether you have a real estate agent negotiating on your behalf or whether you're confident or brave and you want to do it on your own, there's a lot of that going on that's being skipped, right? That gets us down to the 220. But one thing I want you all to remember is with this real estate deal, I'm also creating a tax shelter for myself. So we're not factoring that into the math on how this may benefit me as far as taxes. I'm potentially able to leverage that equity, that $30,000 worth of equity. And then the property is going to appreciate in value as well. So I'm able to deal with the appreciation in value as well. And so there's some other things that are going on. Plus, of course, I'm getting my monthly income. One of the most important things, I don't care how many deals you've done. This is important. Listen to me. You need to have the property inspected. Here on Coach Steele's Finance Training, we're talking about creating generational wealth. We're talking about making sure we get at least 16% cash on cash return on our money on this deal, acquiring a duplex, multifamily unit property, giving yourself a raise, giving yourself a promotion through acquiring real estate. You need to get an inspection done on this property. You get all of these yeses. Everything looks good. Everything looks amazing. You're ready to go in, dive in on this deal. But before you take that dive, I need you to get a great inspector, not a mediocre inspector, not affordable inspector. In that comment section, I need you to write a great inspection, a great inspector. Whichever one you want to write, you need a great inspector. And that's what I look for. I look for someone who is amazing at inspecting properties, someone who does their due diligence, someone who is meticulous about doing inspections. I don't want an inspection that's just going through the motions, because when an inspector just goes through the motions, they miss out on things. When an inspector just doesn't give it their all, when it's not intense. And check this out. When the inspector goes through this thing, it's boring. I'm gonna tell y'all now, when properties are being inspected, it is boring. No one wants to be there. I see y'all in the comment section. Great inspection, great inspection. And Shauna has a good question, and I'm going to answer it. I see Mr. Tony Sherman, great inspection. All of you all are throwing those comments in. You're learning. See, when you write this stuff in the comment section, you're also retaining, because a lot of times you're going to remember the buttons that you pushed. You're going to remember the things that you wrote in that comment section because you wrote it. Not only did you hear it, but now you gave yourself not that physical writing, but also the audio. So now there's two different ways that you've given yourself to retain that information. You're giving yourself a chance to educate yourself and learn. Now, the great inspection, even though it's boring, one thing I always do is I go through the boring inspection with the inspector. If they go look at the AC unit, I go look at the AC unit. If they go look at the plumbing, I go look at the plumbing. If they go look at the roof, I go look at the roof. I'm not telling y'all to go climb on any roofs. Got to do what's safe for you. If they're talking about something, I take notes. All of this is ammunition. Oh, this is so good right now. The inspection is ammunition for your ability to negotiate the price. just through that little bit of advice right there, I've probably just saved someone thousands of dollars. And you got it for free here on Coach Steele's Finance Training. So make sure you go subscribe to the YouTube channel. And we haven't even gotten to the pictures of the duplex. Let's see if I can get there. So yes, Mr. Tony Sherman is correct. The cost of an inspection is probably about $500. Cost of an inspection is probably around $500. Some places it might be $375. It usually depends on the size of the property, and it depends on, hey, do you want the person to get on the roof? Do you not want them to get on the roof? So I would say from $375 to $500, depending on the size of the property. Now, if you're going to have them do a duplex, and the duplex is 2-story, yes, then it's going to cost a little bit more. All right. So you do need to be aware, and you do need to pay for that inspection, because the evidence and the information and the pictures, because the inspector is going to give you all of that, what you get from the inspector is going to give you ammunition to renegotiate. So take that part of the very important. I don't have time to stay there, but let's go a little bit further. So that gave me the ability to renegotiate. You don't have to worry about, well, I already agreed on this amount. I already agreed on that. No, I use my due diligence time frame to look at this, and I see this and I see that. And I now, knowing what I know now through this inspector, and the inspector is not only going to send you the pictures, but can also send the other party the pictures and the report of what they have and what they've seen. Sometimes they do need it, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they already know what the inspector is going to find, but they just decided not to tell you because it wouldn't make sense. So you got to do your own due diligence. Sometimes they may not tell you. So let's go further. All right. So we negotiate. We're at $220,000. It passes cash on cash return. It passes 1%. There's $30,000 worth of equity. So if I have to panic and get out of this deal after I make the purchase, I can go back and sell it to someone else and still walk away with some type of profit or cushion in the process. Now, let's go a little bit further. One thing I will tell you, you can buy a property in all right cash. If you buy it in cash at closing, closing is pretty fast. Closing on properties when you use all cash, you don't sign as many papers. If there's financing involved, then you're going to be signing your name and initialing a bunch of dimes. It's boring, but hey, that's what you do. It's part of you. Sometimes when you're going through financing, like and you can do either or, whichever one makes the most sense for you. Some people may buy in cash and then later on get it financed later, because there's some other cool things that you can do when you buy in cash. Sometimes when you purchase a property or you're doing a deal and they see that you have liquidity and you're coming to the table and you can close faster, they will be willing sometimes to reduce the price because there's less fees or costs for other stuff too. A lot of that stuff balances out. And some people just want to hurry up and get done with deals quick. So if you can get them closed in 2 weeks and they can be done with this whole headache and this whole drama, they will reduce the price. Now they reduce the price, you get it at a better deal, you get more equity, and your cash on cash return has increased. And it's easier to sell now too. Now, Shauna asked a question and I said I wasn't going to forget, and I almost forgot. And I'm going to put her question back up. She says, so could you take the equity and go get another property as long as everything checks out? That is a phenomenal question. Phenomenal question. If mathematically it makes sense when the time is right, maybe when I increase rent a little bit, yes, Kashana, I could take a portion of that equity out, whether it's $20,000 or however much is in there, depending on the value of the property at that time. I can take some of that out and not use my money, but use the equity in the property. I can take the bricks and turn them liquid. I can take the bricks and turn them into cash. Go out, do my due diligence, do my numbers, and go do another deal and start acquiring the next property or another flip or whatever it is with that money. And when I do that, now I have another property, or now I have another multifamily unit property, or now I'm going into another deal with someone else. Happy to have you tuning in, Mr. David Thomas. Make sure you get with me. You can get with me tomorrow at church, or you can get with me and stop by the office, but we need to hook up. My guy, I love you the most. I love you too, but we need to connect ASAP. No problem at all, Kashana. Don't mind answering that question. And so, yes, that is how a lot of people do real estate. And when you pull that equity out of the property, it's not a taxable event because it's seen as a loan, seen as you borrow money. So even, which I wouldn't, but even if you take that money out of the property and go spend it, the tenant is going to pay the property back down, the balance back down. Yes, Mr. Tim Scott, it's OPM, other people's money using the bank's money, and you can spend that money and or use that money to pay your taxes or whatever it is or whatever you're behind on a debt. And now the tenants are going to pay the balance back down, and now you're not using your money, and you also have extra cash, and you don't have to pay taxes on that. That's why the wealthy can acquire multiple assets, borrow against them to live off of, or to create more passive income cash flow and not have to pay taxes. Meanwhile, people get frustrated when wealthy don't pay taxes, but they haven't realized that all they are doing are using the rules to their advantage, and you have access to the same rules, which is why on today we are discussing why it is beneficial to acquire assets that pay you passive income, that create more cash flow for you, to give yourself a raise or promotion, to create generational wealth and also create wealth for yourself. Let's go a little bit further. Why I did this deal on this duplex. Let's see if I can show some pictures. Okay, let's go TikTok. Let's turn this thing around. We're going to flip the camera and see if. All right, so this is the front of the property. It's upstairs, downstairs duplex. That's the back of the No, that's the front. Let's see, that's the back side. I think this is a living room. And let's see, we might have a kitchen area. And that's a bathroom. All right. So now let's turn this back around. All right. So as I promised, I'd show y'all some video, some pictures of that property so you all could see it for yourself. That is the duplex. And Mr. Tony Sherman says, learn tax laws. Exactly. You want to learn tax laws when you're getting into these deals, why you're doing them, the purpose of them, how they're going to benefit you on today. And then when you have someone like as young as David Thomas, let's say he doesn't want to use this as a multifamily unit property to rent out to someone else. David could, as young as he is, he can say, well, I'm going to live in one of the properties, right? He's going to live in one of the doors. So he lives in one of the doors, but he has a tenant in the other door. And so when he has that, the tenant is going to pay him monthly. And whatever that tenant pays him monthly usually is going to cover a majority of the rent, if not all of it. So now he's living somewhere and he doesn't have a mortgage. He doesn't have to pay rent to anybody. And the mortgage payment, the other tenant is paying. So now, as young as he is, he can live there for about a year. The law only requires that he stays there for about a year. Then he can move out and duplicate that process again. Go find another duplex or another fourplex. Now, at a young age in his 20s, he would have 4 doors, 6 doors, whatever the number is on that multifamily unit that he dives into. Meanwhile, he's living for free while the tenants pay his mortgage payment. And that's an easy way for a young person to create generational wealth. But most of us, we immediately dive into a single family unit property instead of just staying somewhere for a year temporarily and then allowing the tenants from that first multifamily unit property that you live in to now pay for the house that you really wanted. Let's go a little bit further. I got about 5 more minutes with me. Y'all hang in there with me for about 5 more minutes. And so you've seen the pictures of the house. I talked to you all about closing. If you finance, closing's a little bit longer. If it's a cash pay, if you're just paying cash, it's a little bit quicker. Another thing I skipped, whenever you're interested in a home and the conversation is getting serious, you want to pay earnest money. Once you pay that earnest money and you give that earnest money, that check to the agent or whoever the seller's representative, that is going to help put you, I guess, in a sense, under contract. So now they're only working with you. They're only doing the deal with you. It's like when you give them that money, it's like, okay, we're taking you serious now. We're locked in with you. You're in a relationship at that point. So you don't want to just be talking and talking and talking because other people are talking and talking. You want to put some money on the table to let people know you're invested, you're serious about that deal. So now you all understand. You've seen the pictures. Let's see. Want to make sure I don't skip anything from y'all. Cash on cash return, 1% rule, due diligence, multifamily unit properties. And so that just gives you a little insight on the deal I did and why I did it and why it made sense. And yes, two tenants are in the property now. They're paying every month like clockwork. It's a beautiful thing. As we have about 3.5 minutes left, if y'all have questions in that comment section, whether it's about real estate or anything else with financial literacy, please feel free to leave those questions in there. Some of you have learned the 1% rule. Some of you have learned better how to understand cash on cash return, just the basic concepts of it. There are other formulas and things that you can do to evaluate a deal. There are other Excel sheets and information that you can plug into all those numbers and information, and the Excel sheet or whatever device or platform you're on, it will automatically add everything up for you to let you know whether or not the deal is good or bad. I don't do a lot of one-on-one coaching and mentorship with real estate investing. I do know a team of people in a program where they do that. If that's something you're interested in, feel free to reach out to me at my email address, coachsteelefinance@gmail.com. You can reach out at my email address or however you feel to reach out inbox, but I prefer you email me, coachsteelefinance@gmail.com. If you need mentorship or guidance, I can send you a company, a program where they do that. If you want that one-on-one coaching and hand holding, is it an investment? Yes, it's an investment on yourself, but at the same time, you can stay stagnant where you are, or you can push forward and get that coaching and that guidance. I'm very selective about who I work with and why. So that's something you all have to look at doing as well. And so that's the duplex, 16% cash on cash return. Where are you going to get 6%, 16% return on your money if you sit it somewhere? It's almost impossible. As the rent goes up in this property, my cash on cash return is going to go up. There'll be eventually where I'm making 20%, where I'm making 25%. It will just continue to go up. And eventually, when the balance on that property is paid off, now my cash on cash return will look different as well. There's possibly a way to refinance. Let's say I bought that property and the interest rate was 7.5%. If the rates go down to 6%, 6.5%, and I refinance, guess what? My profit margin increases and my cash on cash return can potentially increase as well. The options are limitless. And like Kashana mentioned before as well, that gives me the opportunity to get access to equity. I appreciate everybody for tuning in to Coach Steele's finance training on today. You can always go to my website and get a Make Money Multitask t-shirt. For those of you that are on TikTok, you can go and patronize me, and I continue to give you more great content and information. I believe in making your money multitask, and so I don't want you all to just talk about it, but make sure you wear it as well and hold it close to your heart. And let's see if I can flip this camera back for my TikTok family. Anybody have any other questions before we get up out of here? Make sure you go to the YouTube channel and subscribe. All right. Okay, I missed a couple of comments here. Yes, Shauna, that's what you're talking to your son about. Yes, Mr. David. I know what you're talking about, but yeah, we need to have a conversation too. Earnest money. We got Mr. Tony Sherman saying great investment of time today, educational benefit. Need to go get one. That's exactly it. And be strategic about it. For those of you that are in the military, be strategic about it. You can leave out of the military after your term and have multiple doors. But I appreciate everybody tuning in to Coach Steele's finance training. You all have been awesome on today, just flat out phenomenal. And I don't take it lightly that you took time out of your morning to stop by to hang out with me here at Coach Steele's Finance Training. Once again, appreciate every person. You all be blessed. Have a great day.